Testing, testing, testing. What's up, everybody? Who we got up in the building? We gonna go in a little bit today. This is not gonna be that long. But let's who we got? Who we got up in the building? First in the building, we got Aboriginal TV, the young free mom in the building. Mr. Dark Brother One in the building. What's up? We got a couple people. We got Durant out there. What's up, Durant? You probably gonna like this one today. We got Ron Redbird in the building. What's up? What's up? What's up? We finna put the last final straw in DNA, and then but we're gonna let the scientists themselves do it. So we got $10 on in the building. So welcome. We you know what I'm saying, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going out with the old and we're coming in with the new. You know what is DNA to you? Now what DNA was to them and what DNA was is not what DNA is now today in 2019 going into 2020. So whatever you thought DNA was back in the olden days, we no longer believe that. You know why? Because we have computer guys. So now today what I'm going to do is I'm going to, the Microsoft people themselves and the computer guys themselves, I'm going to have them explain to you their limitations and what they can and can't do with DNA. So I'm not going to be talking today. I'm going to let other computer guys talk for me because it's a community of us computer guys out here. But for some reason, the cult like sunken place people are very popular these days. So we're gonna kind of get some computer nerd. It's gonna be very nerdy. It's about to get very nerdy. So I am sorry if you're not into the nerdy stuff, but this is the only way we can sort things out and explain things. Is in a mathematical way. This is how nerds debate using math. So so right now, this first little clip, shout out to Microsoft Research. Microsoft Research. You can check them out. Now, these are the Microsoft researchers themselves explaining pretty much what then, their capabilities and things like that. And then we're going to get back to some other stuff. So the video is 3 minutes long. It's going to be very nerdy. You might have to watch the video a couple different times to kind of comprehend what they're saying if you're not familiar with this type of language and this type of talk. But let's get it in. I'm your boy Ty Data. You know me, the hashtag the Kodaks. If you ain't subscribed yet, then that's on you. The rest of you who's already in a sunken place, um, as you can see, the sunken place is real, you guys, and woo, man, oh man. Here we go.
Imagine a world where we can do computation inside living cells.
The problem that we're trying to solve is really trying to have a more sophisticated diagnosis that can happen automatically inside cells.
Imagine a biological computer that operates inside a living cell. So for example, it can be used to determine whether a cell is cancerous, and if so, then trigger the death of the cell.
So here we're talking about little molecular systems that you can, work that run in a test tube or maybe even in a live cell, so they're really small. The type of work that they're doing is essentially imagine a world where we can do computation inside living cells.
The problem that we're trying to solve is really trying to have a more sophisticated diagnosis that can happen automatically inside cells.
Imagine a biological computer that operates inside a living cell. So for example, it could be used to determine whether a cell is cancerous, and if so, then trigger the death of the cell.
So here we're talking about little molecular systems that you can, work that run in a test tube or maybe even in a live cell, so they're really small. The type of work that they're doing is essentially they're trying to sense, analyze and control molecular information.
In this project, we're trying to use DNA as a programmable material.
DNA is highly programmable, just like a computer, and we can program a whole range of complex behaviors using DNA molecules.
So we're taking advantage of a phenomenon called DNA strand displacement.
So DNA strand displacement is essentially a competitive hybridization reaction. So it's two strands of DNA that come together, and as they bind to one another, a third strand that was initially bound is kicked off. One issue with any biology research or biomolecular research is that it's always sort of a cycle of trial and error. You test it, it doesn't work, so you go back to the drawing board and you do that over and over again. And it's a slow cycle because doing experiments just is hard and it takes a lot of time.
We developed a language for programming molecular circuits made of DNA. So the programmer would write down a collection of DNA strands, and the software will work out how these DNA strands interact with each other and can be used to predict their behavior over time. And this kind of software could, for example, be used to detect and fix bugs in a molecular circuit design before that circuit is built. For decades, biologists had been using chemical reaction networks as a means of describing the behavior of biological systems. So what our technology enables for the first time is that any system described as a chemical reaction network can now be translated and implemented in biology at the molecular level.
One of the things that we've done recently, which I'm particularly excited about, is that we have created, designed, using our tool, and created experimentally is an implementation of the so-called approximate majority algorithm. At the moment, really the technology is very much in its infancy. It's still very much at the research stage. So most of what we're doing is in the test tube. An enormous goal will be to have what we're able to do in the test tube also working inside cells. That's a hugely enormous challenge.
So this could enable a whole range of biotechnology applications. For example, it could allow us to both detect and treat disease to a level of precision that has not been possible so far. It could also allow us to make new compounds far more efficiently. These compounds could be medicines or biomaterials, and ultimately it could allow us to make biological computers that operate at the molecular scale.
Testing, testing, testing. As you can see, I don't look like those guys and I don't really sound like those guys. But if you listen to them and you listen to me a little bit, you notice we kind of speak the same language a little bit. So that was them telling you, some of the limitations. Hold on one second. Some of the limitations and some of the things that they trying to do, some of the things that they can and can't do. You know what I'm saying? It's not saying that I 100. It's not saying that I 100% trust what they're saying, but as you can see, when you're dealing with DNA, you're dealing with computer software, like I've been saying. You're dealing with coding. You're dealing with applications. These are the type of stuff you're dealing with nowadays. Now, back in the old days, they used to use different chemicals to agitate the genes and record their behavior. I said this already, but just in case you didn't know it, and that's one of the things they used to do. So you have all these old ass people and this old philosophy and this old stuff, and they trying to bring it into the future. The shit stops here. You guys are in a sunken place, and hopefully you might make it out, and once you make it out the sunken place, we will leave the light on for you over here in the future. Okay, okay, because we are much advanced, so the old stuff, it cannot make it into the future. If the old stuff make it into the future, where I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. Like I don't even know how to calculate that. Like that just right. Even saying that is weird. So, but now we're gonna get into a more we're going to get into a more some better a better video. This video, shout out to the people over here. Also, that video was 2016. I believe the last video you checked was 2016. This video is Discovery Science, and this was June 17, 2019. So we're going into the future because for some reason we look down on each other. So if another brother tell you something, because you see him as such a low class person, that whatever he say to you, you just can't find it in yourself to believe him. He has to be a scam somewhere. It has to be some distrust somewhere. Like brothers cannot be trustworthy to each other. And so now I actually found some some different skin colored people, and now they're about to pretty much explain the same thing I've been explaining for almost 2 years now. Thank you, YouTube. I appreciate it, YouTube, for me being able to back some of my stuff up, because I really thought I was out here alone. But thank you, YouTube. There is a community of us. We're out here and we're going into the future. Don't get left in the sunken place. Here we go. We're about to turn it on.
We've shown that DNA is actually the software of life. It's totally interchangeable between the digital world and the biological world.
The DNA code itself is so digital, is so almost...
It's actually the software of life. It's totally interchangeable between the digital world and the biological world. We've shown that DNA is actually the software of life. It's totally interchangeable between the digital world and the biological world.
The DNA code itself is so digital, is so almost exactly like a computer tape.
Totally interchangeable.
The DNA code itself
is the software of life.
is so digital.
Scientists have come to the amazing conclusion that our bodies contain digital code. In fact, Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, tweeted, "DNA is more advanced than any software ever created." Think about it. A program or code is written by someone very smart. The more complex the code, the more intelligent the author has to be. So here's the question. If our DNA code is more complex than any man-made software, where did it come from? Is it possible it was authored without an author, programmed without a program? Materialists think so, through neo-Darwinism, the modern version of Darwinian evolution. Stephen Meyer, author of the New York Times bestseller Darwin's Doubt, explains.
According to neo-Darwinism, new genetic information arises as a result of random mutations in the arrangement of the nucleotide bases along the spine of the DNA molecule. If those random changes are beneficial, they're passed on and preserved, and if many such changes are preserved and passed on, they would accumulate over time and eventually result in a very significant change in the morphology, the form of the organism.
That's like saying if this game had glitches every time it was copied online, and gamers shared their favorite mutated versions and trashed the rest, it would eventually turn into this. Come on, really? If we know the computer glitches won't produce a new video game, how much sense does it make to believe that glitches, copying errors, and our DNA code can produce new organisms? Could random mutations in DNA really produce this? 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 What about this? 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 Or this?
Everything we know about software shows that random changes in a section of functional code or functional information is going to degrade that information long before you ever get to something fundamentally new. And that's the problem with the mutation selection mechanism as an explanation for new genetic information. Information in DNA is also essentially typographic or digital. And there are far more ways to go wrong in arranging those characters than there are ways to go right. And so as you begin to randomly change them, you inevitably fall into a non-functional abyss long before you ever generate anything fundamentally new.
So just how unlikely is it for random genetic changes to produce something new, even something as modest as a protein structure with a new function? One scientist performed experiments that enabled him to actually calculate the odds, and they aren't good. In fact, they're next to impossible. We caught up with the molecular biologist Douglas Axe in Seattle.
In our lab work, we've asked how rare or how common functional proteins are within the space of possibilities. Doing experiments and calculations, we found that they're exceedingly rare, like 1 in 10 to the 74th power rare. To get a feel for those odds, imagine that somebody hid one atom somewhere within the Milky Way galaxy, and you, blindfolded by chance, are supposed to pick one atom and hope that it's the right one. Those odds would be better than the odds for the protein.
Axe calculated the probability for all the chance mutations in all of the life forms on Earth for billions of years. And in all that time, he found they couldn't chance on even one new functional protein structure. Not one. Zero. And keep in mind, it takes thousands of distinct proteins to build any kind of complex life, including humans. And many of these proteins are unique to each individual life form. So we go from improbable to basically impossible.
The bottom line is that the mutation selection mechanism simply lacks the creative power to generate the new information necessary to build new organisms in the history of life.
If the material processes of mutation and natural selection aren't capable of producing the biological information needed for life, then where did it come from?
Our uniform and repeated experience, as Darwin himself pointed out, is the basis of all scientific reasoning about the past. So when we see information in a digital form in software, or we see a paragraph in a book, and we trace that information back to its source, we always come to a mind, not a material process. That's part of what we know from our observation of the world around us, that information always arises from an intelligent source. So we can apply that knowledge to the question of historical biology. And when we see that information is the foundation of life, we can infer that the best explanation for the origin of that information is in fact also a mind, a conscious agent, not an undirected material process.
When presented with evidence that conflicts with neo-Darwinism, most scientists cling to a belief in the blind process of evolution, denying what science has discovered. That at the foundation of life, there exists a code so complex and advanced that it defies chance. They make no room for the possibility that we were created by an intelligence far more sophisticated than the most genius of programmers. Instead, they choose to limit their investigation to a strictly materialist worldview. When faced with this evidence, how will you respond? We are not materialists. We see the human soul. We experience love. We live with purpose. We fight for justice. We acquire joy, and we will be quiet no longer.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing. How everybody doing? As you can see, I don't even need to talk. I would like to break that down a little bit further, but I've been doing that for a very long time. And I just want to let everybody know is that the information that a lot of these dudes are speaking was correct at one point of time. But because we are in a new age and going into 2020, their information and their philosophy is no longer valid and there is no room for them. We are the future. They are not. They are the past. So, you can cling on to the past as much as you want, and as long as you can keep reinventing the past, you can be somewhere. You can have some, footing in the future. But for those of us who is getting ready and preparing for the future, we cannot cling onto things that is emotionally or that sound good to us. There is proof and there is everything out there. If you want to find these things, what we just listened to, you might want to rewind this and listen a little more closely to understand. He's basically telling you that this natural selection and all this stuff, he's basically telling you by our understanding and basically telling you that the shit is impossible. I'm just going to keep it real. It's garbage. It's no longer valid no more. Okay? We have computers that can make a computer have a baby. Okay? Like we're in the future. So what are we doing? Falling behind some old ass guy who wrote a book for watching birds or some weirdo stuff. Bro, give it up, okay? The future is now, and we are the future. The sunken place has begun. It's your choice. Are you going to stay in the sunken place, or are you going into the future with us? I'm out here, and I've been out here. 5,000 Elite every day, all day. We out here. You can catch me on the Kodaks. Check us out.